Yo, what's up? This is Jay Dennis, and we're back with a ranked and reviewed for the first time in a while. If you've been itching to hear another video, thanks for your patience. Had a lot of personal changes going on, and honestly, I haven't really had it in me to make any videos, but kind of doing a special band here today. But before I get into it, check the ranked and reviewed playlist if you're a metalhead or like rock or hard music, even a little bit of rap. We've got 55 to 60 videos at this point. There's probably a good chance I've done a band you liked, so go check that out if, that itch hasn't been scratched. But today is kind of a huge reason to resume these videos, and we're doing like pretty much the biggest, most mainstream metal band of all time, and the third of the big four bands of 80s thrash metal that I'll be doing, Metallica. I've done Slayer's and Megadeth's discography thus far. Anthrax is still a little ways off. They're a little obscure at times. I do like them, but Metallica just put out a new album, a little over a week old. I've been listening to these guys for at least half my life, been exposed to them for almost my whole life. And got a lot of experience listening to them. Kind of had to re-listen a little bit to a couple albums just to refresh and, of course, give the new album a fair shake. But I'm pretty confident in this ranking. So let's just go ahead and get into it. Part of the reason why I hadn't even done Metallica all these years is because it seems like it's already kind of established what their best albums are. So consider this. Within their 11 studio albums, you got their first 5 albums, which are pretty much universally loved, and then you got their last 6 albums, which have some more divided albums as well as their new stuff. So consider like the back half versus the front half. But hey, there might actually be a little bit of a divergence in opinions here, and that's why this band is pretty fun to do. I think all 11 albums are worth listening to and are all enjoyable, and in a lot of ways, Metallica can really do no wrong. And that over the years, I think even their most divisive albums have aged well. And as long as these guys have been doing it, putting out, this is a 40-year span of albums here. So for them to still be gifting us with music, no matter what our opinions are on it, it's a gift. And I'm super happy and glad that these guys have pushed through this long and put out high-quality material. So let's go ahead and get into it. There's a few ties, but the spread between the 11 albums is basically a B- all the way up to basically an A+, almost a damn near perfect album at the top. But I don't think there's really any mediocre Metallica albums. I think they're all pretty great in their own respect. So, the bottom spot is tough because it's actually kind of a two-way tie, but I'm actually going to give the slight disadvantage to the Yellow Album. Their newest album, 72 Seasons. Now, like I said, the lowest album is still a B-, which means it's still solid. And this is a grower of an album. My first impression of this album was not great. I was like, ugh, retread, nothing exciting. James Hetfield sounds great vocally on this album. In fact, he's still breaking new ground. Like, I think this might be one of his best performances. I think his vocals alone carry most of the album. But besides that, not a lot of exciting riffs, not a lot of exciting melodies, and once again, we're 3 studio albums into having Robert Trujillo on bass, and we're still underutilizing this guy, who is at least, if not arguably better at playing the bass than the other 2 bassists that they've had. That's a discussion for another video, but underutilizing Trujillo in the studio, I imagine. He's obviously utilized pretty heavily live. But 72 Seasons definitely sounded better on additional listens, so I still think it's worth revisiting from time to time, but kind of tapped out on it now. My favorite tracks are Screaming Suicide, the title, Lux Eterna. It's quick, punchy, and easy. There's really no filler on that song. What else do I like? Room of Mirrors. But when we're talking about James Hetfield's voice and carrying a lot of these songs that kind of have really not a whole lot of exciting guitar work, I'm talking, actually, the best track is Sleepwalk My Life Away. I love that groovy drum and bass intro. Kind of utilizing Rob there, but the chorus of that song is awesome. You Must Burn is kind of a weak track, but the chorus is awesome. Again, James kind of saving the songs. Chasing Light, another great chorus. If Darkness Had a Sun, actually pretty gripping and has a great hook. And then Enema for short. Longest studio song they've done, like longest original track I believe they've done. And at first I was kind of bored with it, but then I listened to it a few more times. I'm like, holy crap, the song is actually a pretty solid closer. And as well as that middle part where they used Rob, a lot of good bass parts and a nice little guitar harmony section that was kind of reminiscent of, I believe it's My Friend of Misery from the Black Album. So here's the thing about 72 Seasons. It's great. 7 years to get to this, though. I know that there was a lot of touring and a lot of maybe other stuff going on, but I kind of feel like you had 7 years since your last album. A little bit more could have been put into this on the guitar side. So if this is Metallica's swan song record, I kind of feel like they could have left on a higher note with Hardwired. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Megadeth, where their last release was Dystopia in 2016. All big four bands put out major releases in 2016. But anyway, Megadeth put out an awesome Dystopia album, and then last year they put out Sick Dying Dead, which is good, but not one of their better albums for sure. But again, I can't complain about these awesome bands that are still around, still raging all these decades later, giving us gifts and giving us gems within these albums. But the entire albums themselves aren't their best work, and that's why it's taken me already 7 fucking minutes to talk about 72 Seasons. Let's move on. The next spot goes to Reload. So, again, kind of tied for the bottom here, but Reload gets the slight edge because unlike 72 Seasons, the turnaround on this follow-up album was quicker. And as much of it as it's a retread, a little bit of load, that's why it's called Reload, I still think that there were more kind of high points, but Metallica's worst song is on this record, in my opinion, and that is Memory Remains. I actually don't hate the song, but the freaking guest vocals, it kills the song. I absolutely despise that part. The guitar solo in Fuel is weak, but it's otherwise catchy song. I don't dislike the Reload era from Metallica. I think it's actually aged really well. Devil's Dance, Unforgiven 2 is where the album picks up. Carpe Diem Baby's an awesome kind of like grungy song with a lot of groove. And speaking of grunge, Where the Wild Things Are very much reminds me of like, holy shit, the early 90s grunge. I love that, and Where the Wild Things Are. And then the closing track, Fixer. Just that evil melodic sound. Like, these guys knew what they were doing by slowing things down and really showcasing James Hetfield's more melodic timbre. I just think it sounds insane. And Reload's probably an overlooked, underrated album, but I think it's starting to get more love as time goes on. But moving along to the number 9 spot, we actually have Load. Okay. Load, slightly better than Reload, a little bit more consistency, a few more tracks that I enjoy, and in my opinion, better singles. Until It Sleeps and King Nothing are great back-to-back singles, and Until It Sleeps has got that little bit of a grunge sound. The fucking groove of Cure. Cure is such an underrated Metallica song, in my opinion. And you just love that chorus. You love that groove, the hooks, the kind of jam session towards the back end. Hero of the Day, one of my other favorite tracks, especially when the double bass kicks in. Very, probably not talked about a whole lot song. I love Hero of the Day. And yeah, Mama Said, beautiful song, acoustic kind of country song. I actually like it. And Ain't My Bitch is a kind of a better opening track than Fuel. But yeah, like I said, Load Reload era is kind of starting to age a little bit better, but in the context of their whole discography, it's still kind of understood why compared to their quote-unquote golden years, why this stuff still sits at the bottom. Next up at the number 8 spot. I'm starting to go through these quicker now. We have Saint Anger. And the reason I'm able to get through these quicker is because I'm actually familiar with these albums and kind of already have known my thoughts on them for a long time. So I'm going to share something a little controversial here. I don't hate the way this album sounds. I'm not going to come here and say that more albums need to have the Saint Anger snare sound or anything like that. But I think it's a perfect encapsulation and representation of what the heck these guys were going through. This band had issues, and they fucking worked through them. I don't know how much of that some kind of monster documentary was embellished or made for just TV effects, but these guys got together and worked out their shit. And this raw, kind of disgusting, but kind of fun album is a result of it. They detuned the guitars, played in drop C for most of it, played in G sharp for Invisible Kid, which is a fucking banger. I love Invisible Kid. Unnamed Feeling, another insanely good song with a great chorus. Purify, even though it's got that weird, like, out of tune chorus, it really captures that angst. I just like the way they sound. I don't care if it sounds raw, unrefined, kind of trashy at times. I think it's just it's a catharsis album. There's some solid riffs on there. You got Dirty Window, which has some solid guitar work. You got catchy choruses like My World, a little bit of groove with like Shoot Me Again, and then some melodies that are memorable, yet a little distorted with like Sweet Amber or Unnamed Feeling. And then, of course, the opening track and then Saint Anger are also pretty catchy in their own right as well. But yeah, so on the bottom end of the spectrum, we're looking at the first, 4 albums of this list. This is kind of like the bottom tier. And let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So next up at number 7, we're starting to jump up in quality here a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean quite a bit. We've got Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Now, like I said earlier, if this had been their swan song album, it would have made sense. But considering how active they were, you can kind of understand why the Metallica fan base was kind of craving a new album. So, kind of like with Lux Eterna, they front-loaded this one with Hardwired. Quick, punchy 3-minute song with some solid overall work. I just think that this was a better homage to their older sound than 72 Seasons. Although I've heard some people say 72 Seasons sounds like a blend between the Load Reload era and Kill 'Em All. I do listen to other takes, and I wanted to listen to a few other reviews on these albums. So I listened to Andriy Velensko, however you say his name. I believe he's a Ukrainian guy. He's got a great Metallica channel. He had some good takes on it. Anyway, what the fuck was I getting at there? Great singles on Hardwired. The Self-Destruct, Atlas Dead. I think it picks up with quality a bit with Now That We're Dead. What else did I really like about this album? I've got to scroll up here. The outro to Halo of Fire, holy fuck. That is a solid song, and I guess it's technically a 2-disc album, so a great way to end the first half of the album. Kind of slows down a bit with Confusion and Man Unkind, but then it starts to pick up in quality again with Here Comes Revenge, freaking nasty-ass outro riff of Am I Savage? You gotta love those harmonics. Murder One, and then, of course, the closing track, which is like one of the best Metallica songs, and at least one of the best newer Metallica songs, Spit Out the Bone, which is just a fucking nasty, perfect heavy close. So the album is definitely bookended with heavy riffs. They really kind of got into the pocket of comfort here, but they definitely put out something punchier and a bit more memorable than, say, their newest release. Next up at number 6, this is where we're going to start to get some differences here. I wonder if you guys are already like, how the fuck did you put Saint Anger so high? At number 6, I'm actually going to put their first album, Kill 'Em All. Because this is an extremely important album in thrash metal history. and you can definitely hear some of Dave Mustaine's influence on a lot of it. But Kirk Hammett solos and shreds like a motherfucker on here. But the only area that this album lacks, is just James Hetfield's vocals. It's not bad. It's just they're unrefined. They're undeveloped. But Hit the Lights is one of the greatest album openers. Just freaking roaring solos, freaking catchy riffs, a lot of bounce. Like, this is an awesome album. Like, I love this album. It's just, we're starting to get into some like really high quality shit here. I love the punk rock energy of Motor Breath. I think Four Horsemen's a little bit drawn out. I actually like Mechanics from Megadeth better. But the back half of the album, Phantom Lord and Metal Militia, fucking love those songs. But Phantom Lord's always been one of my favorite songs. Oh, Mustaine's got some writing credits on here. That's good. There's iconic riffs on here. You got Jump in the Fire, you got Seek and Destroy, you got like just automatically recognizable songs. But in terms of their first 5 albums, I think this is their weakest one, but it's definitely showing what was to, come ahead, which was eternal greatness from one of the greatest bands of all time. Next up at the number 5 spot is, this one's got a bit of sentimental value, but it's Death Magnetic. This was really their thrashy comeback album after releasing what some people would say were 3 poor albums at the time. This album's got a lot of sentimental value to me because I listened to it a lot my senior year of high school. And if you're an album that existed during my senior year of high school, you've kind of already got your foot halfway in the door to probably be one of the best albums from a particular band. Holy crap, where's the track list? Okay. I love the intro and just the entirety of the opening tracks. That Was Just Your Life. I love the freaking groove of End of the Line. I don't care if some people shit on the solo or whatever, but the lead work isn't exactly stellar on this album, but the songs are great. James Hetfield sounds great. The mix is kind of weird, but the songs are great. And there's memorable hooks and tracks. Day That Never Come is a ballad that's aged really well. All Nightmare Long, another great catchy chorus. Cyanide, fucking powerful wah pedal opening riff with some bass in between and just some nasty riffs. Like, awesome song, Cyanide, probably the best track on the album. Do I have any other thoughts about? There was one particular chorus that I overlooked for a while. The chorus to Judas Kiss. Love that chorus. Suicide and Redemption is a great underrated instrumental. It's probably the weakest of their instrumentals, but it's still awesome to listen to, especially when you're comparing it to the Titans that I'm about to get into here soon. And James Hetfield's solo on there is also awesome. So I think Death Magnetic is another album that's aged really well and just starts and ends on a really solid note. So let's see here. All right, we're at the top 4 now. So next up at number 4, we've got the Black Album, or Metallica. It's a self-titled album, but it's the fucking Black Album. This was kind of really the album that really, really got me into them. And of course, I forget what the actual accolade is, but I think this is like one of the highest selling albums of all time, at least in rock or metal. And for good reason. This album also came out the year I was born, so you're welcome. I love this album. There's really no weak tracks, no lack of momentum killing, except for Don't Tread on Me. I was never really a huge fan of that song. But you've got the iconic Enter Sandman, you got the fucking heavy, powerful, I don't know if it's D standard or drop D, but Sad But True, just heavy, loud, just freaking Bob Rock's mixing it like a champ. He produced it, but whatever. The album is mixed beautifully. The freaking whatever bass that you thought didn't exist on Injustice for All definitely exists on this album. It sounds amazing. I forgot to mention, Jason Newsted sounds incredible in Load and Reload also. That's another reason why those albums are great, because Jason Newsted's bass playing is fucking incredible. Anyway, a lot of iconic tracks on here and singles. Unforgiven, Wherever I May Roam. I love the guitar work of Through the Never. Friend of Misery. Like I said, that kind of harmony section in the middle. And then the Struggle Within is just, to me, one of the best thrashy outro tracks. The intro kind of reminds me of like a sped up version of Blackened's intro a little bit. Whatever your opinion on this song is, I think Nothing Else Matters is one of the best ballads ever written. And then The God That Failed, that's another song that I kind of overlooked for a while, but actually is really fucking good. So this is where they started to get a bit more commercial, started to slow down, but I still think it holds up really well and it sounds incredible, and there's still a lot of thrash elements on it. All right, now we're on to the top three. And this is where fans are pretty much always going to go like, well, this is their best album. And it's probably going to sound like I'm going to just kind of bust through these, but it's probably because I'm not really giving any original takes on any of these albums. Like, these three albums are the quintessential Metallica albums, and it's up to you guys to determine what's the best. But this is my video, so I'm going to share what I think are the best. At the number 3 spot, which, by the way, 3 and 2 are kind of tied, but there's a difference. Third best album from Metallica, in my opinion, is Ride the Lightning. I know a lot of people put this one at the very top. I think it is the perfect median between Kill 'Em All and Master Puppets in terms of refinement, a huge step forward in song quality and vocal quality, but I still believe that it's still a bit, if this is occasionally a drawback, a bit raw and unrefined compared to what they were going to put out next. However, it's an excellent album. I gave it a 93. I gave it a 93 out of 100. Like, it's so fucking good. I had to be nitpicky to find flaws with this album. Like, I don't dislike the song Escape, but tracks like that, which are better than like a lot of the songs on the back half of the catalog or the ranking, bit of a momentum killer otherwise, but it's still a good song. But iconic tracks, Creeping Death, Fade to Black, that entire song still grips me. In fact, I was listening to it at a supermarket the other day, listening to the outro, the fade out of the solo, and I fucking was starting to tear up a bit. I was like, holy crap, I forgot how much I love this song. You got the freaking amazing thrashiness of the title track, Ride the Lightning, the riff fest and bass work of For Whom the Bell Tolls. I think my personal favorite track is Trapped Under Ice. Just love that speed. This is a fast, angry album, and I can see why some people hold it in such high regard. So it's just nitpicking, and it's just a little bit of difference of opinion, but I love the tone. I love the guitar work. I think Call of Cthulhu is actually probably their best instrumental. So that's a new opinion of mine. I think Call of Cthulhu is their best instrumental. And I think I've talked about every song on this album except for Fight Fire with Fire. I love the speed. I don't love all the vocals on it. I don't think it's their strongest opening track, but holy fuck if it's not an incredible one nonetheless. Yeah, I think I've talked about every song. So let's move on. Number 2 spot goes to And Justice for All, which got a 94 out of 100. My hot take on this album is I don't hate the mix. I think that Dean Del Rey was correct to say that, yeah, while it's fun to listen to bands and people remix it or add bass and do And Justice for Jason, it's fun, but the original thing did it right. Even though the drumming mix wasn't great and the lack of bass was like, what the fuck? You gotta remember what these guys were going for at the time. They just lost Cliff Burton. So, yeah, maybe Jason got burnt, but the sound they were going for, just like the super tight technical sound that kind of sounded a bit hollow and a bit like, I don't know why I keep using this term, but it sounds like military. It sounds like, maybe because of one, but I actually love the weird, tight, high-end sound that's lacking oomph, lacking bass. It just kind of fits the riffs, and that's what this album is absolutely packing. It is fucking a guitar showcase. In terms of guitar work, this is probably their best album, probably the best leads, and definitely some of the best riffs with Blackened. You got that iconic intro, which really showcases the band's urgency and sadness of losing one of their best friends and bass player. Dyer's Eve, also an incredible closing track to really bookend an otherwise almost perfect album. If I had to nitpick any song, in fact, I don't think I can. I'm looking at my list here, and every song got a 9 at least, except for the instrumental. I'm sorry, guys, but it's a great instrumental, and I love the middle part, but I don't have as much fun listening to it as Call of Cthulhu or Orion. I understand the meaning behind it, but if I was going to look at any momentum killer or nitpick, it would be that track. But other than that, every song is amazing. Fright Ends of Sanity, Harvester of Sorrow, the way they go back and forth between clean and heavy is just perfect. Like, this is a perfect, damn near perfect thrash album where they slow down. James Hetfield sounds great. Kirk Hammett is probably at his absolute best. I didn't talk about his solos in the Black Album, where he really fucking did a lot of memorable voicings and wrote a lot of iconic, memorable solos. So, forgot to mention that. But Kirk really shines on this album with Blackened. Trying to think of any other ones off the top of my head, but I just think this is probably their most solid album. I got a lot of other things I could say, but this video is going to go on really long. This is their second best album. Their first best album. Their best album, to me, has always been Master of Puppets. And this is the one that got damn near perfect. Almost a perfect, like, 10 out of 10. Got like a 9.5, 9.6 out of 10. It's one of the greatest albums of all time. Megadeth's Rust in Peace. Megadeth's Rust in Peace. Slayer's Rain and Blood. Metallica's Master of Puppets. It has everything that Ride the Lightning has in terms of raw power and speed, as well as And Justice for All's maturity and guitar work, but it's got a fucking perfect mix. And of course, the songs to boot. It's got the best opening track, Battery. The only song that comes close to being as good as Battery is Blackened. But Battery is just a freaking masterpiece. And then, of course, even though it's not my favorite song on the album, it's one of the most important metal songs ever written. Title track, Master Puppets. Stranger Things kind of mainstreamed this song all over again. I wish people could talk about Metallica without talking about Master Puppets, but it's one of the best goddamn arrangements ever created. It's loaded with memorable riffs. The entire song, there isn't a single forgettable part about this song. In the 8.5 minutes of this song, give or take, every part is memorable. The sequence of this song is flawless. And the fact that a song that long can go by so quick with a insane bridge and solo makes this one of the few tracks that are a perfect 10 out of 10. Even if it's not my favorite Metallica song, it is a perfect song. And then you got the slow, menacing, kind of like Sad But True. I don't know if it's in drop D or D standard, but you got The Thing That Should Not Be, which is just this slow, evil song, heavy-ass riff. And then you got Sanitarium, which goes back and forth between clean and heavy and has one of the best speedy bridges and guitar solos. Then you got my other favorite track from them, which is Disposable Heroes, which is like Master of Puppets Part 2. Another long-ass song with a freaking memorable solo. And just speed to boot. And then you got Leper Messiah, kind of slowing down again. This album is flawless with its execution of sequencing, going back and forth between heavy, heavy, slow, heavy, heavy, slow. In Leper Messiah, especially that da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, just all sorts of memorable riffs. Then you got Orion, which is almost their best instrumental, but you just gotta love that bass synthy intro with Cliff Burton just really showcases his talent on this one, and the guitar work just just so much just E standard freaking magic there. And then of course it closes with my other favorite track from Metallica overall, and that's Damage Inc. That crazy ass wah bass intro, all that ambiance, and it goes into one of the fastest, thrashiest thrash metal songs of all time, bookending it just like And Justice for All, if not just slightly better. So this was a longer video, but I'm talking about one of the greatest bands of all time. I could probably talk about this band and all their albums for at least a few hours, but for the sake of time and not rambling too much, I want to kind of just close it off here. So just to recap, least favorite to most favorite, we got 72 Seasons, which is now the Yellow album. Reload, Load, Saint Anger, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, Kill 'Em All, Death Magnetic, the Black Album, Ride the Lightning, and Justice for All, and their best album, of course, is Master of Puppets. Be sure to be sure to post what you agree or disagree with. Are any of my takes original? Do you agree with me that maybe some of their stuff from the 90s or even Saint Anger are starting to age pretty well, and that maybe some of the hate wasn't justified, or do you still think it's shit? Because here's the thing. Most of us already know that their first 5 albums are kind of their best albums. But they've released a lot of great music ever since. And I think it's worth talking about, and I think it's worth acknowledging their work ethic and the gifts that they've given us over the years. So it took me a while, but then putting out a new album definitely prompted me to want to do one on Metallica. Be sure to check out the rest of my channel. Be sure to comment, again, what you agree, disagree with. And we'll see if I keep making more of these. I got plenty of other bands that I've always wanted to do, just haven't gotten around to yet. But thank you guys for sticking around if you have, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace!